I forgot I had this. Almost forgot I had this. Let's see. E-flite PT-19. It can be electric, RC, and or control line. And I kind of bought it specifically to be a control line. The reason being, there's a nice field close to my house. It's because the RC field's 40 clicks away. The control line field's about 45. And decided I'll put an electric together. So here we go. Electric control line. Whoever thought? It comes the ailerons with these guys in place, and you glue all your mounts and everything. What I'm not going to do, also comes with the control line version. So these just screw in. Amazingly, very amazingly, you put that in, and the U in the US lines up perfect either way, which I found was kind of amazing. So I'm going to get busy and screw these little bastards in place, and try to get this thing put together. Maybe even fly it before the snow flies. Okay, these guys screwed in. Not much to it. Don't over tighten them. I got real used to the quality of that Brodak kit, and I'm looking at some of the material in this. It's not bad. I paid $100 for the kit, $120. I mean, thing's built and covered. Shouldn't bitch about it, but once you build an airplane of your own, especially if you use a kit like Brodak's made in the States, you see all that real nice plywood and stuff that they got. Oh, by the way, there's a Z-bend here. You just put it in the aileron horn, and you use the easy connector. I'll see how good this Chinese easy connector is. It looks alright. E-flite, I guess it's made, I guess Horizon owns this outfit. Well, I do not want to go in there. Wow. I'll tell you, that is tight. There. Slivers of plywood coming off. Not as good as the Brodak one, that's for damn sure. Get the little snap connector in there. Pliers look like overkill, but I get these nice deep teeth in here, and the pin fits right in there. And send them home like that. There. That's how you get them on. that aileron lined up nice and straight. Put some blue glue on there, on the screw, the retaining screw. Well, it does take a number 3 Phillips. I put blue glue and everything. You know what? Okay, that's on there good. Take all tape off. That's the way you should take tape off. Won't lift your covering or your dope like you did in the last plane. That's on there good. You know what I think would be way better than this rinky-dink setup here? Put a Z-bend on that. Put the Z-bend through the hole. And I'd put a little Z-bend here as well. That way if you don't get them lined up quite right, you can adjust. But I think that's how I when you look how fugly this is. You know, the other way to go is get some of this covering. Snip off that horn if you're strictly going to be a control line, and just iron some covering over these two ends, and that would hold that from moving around. Anyway, there's that setup, and this leaves it open to going back to RC. In fact, the way this plane's set up, you can go either way. Have it put the servos in and everything, and it's a convertible. You convert it back and forth to RC or control line. I'm not doing that. I'm going to set her up and forget it. Corrected this a few times on other ARFs. They didn't get the alignment so good on the hinges. This thing's pre-hinged. These hinges are in myself. Yeah, I might have used the CA hinges on the ailerons, just because I won't be using the ailerons. But when they put her together, they get the alignment off. Oh, you'll be able to see that. But the this one's a little high. So unfortunately I got to leave it a little high here as well. If I have it down, it being on the outboard wings, you might want to steer into me. And don't like that experience much on a control line. It lines up okay on the tip, but not so much on this end. She went a little astray, as you can see there. Good stuff, eh? Skip a lot of steps when you don't go RC. This is a nice looking little airplane. You know, I always liked the PT-19. It's got nice lines to it. I put together a lot of planes, and I know guys ignore the you know, especially with ARFs, mostly with ARFs, they just start hammering them together. But you know what I find? When you follow the instructions, everything goes smooth, and there's no oh shits at the end, or leftover parts. So next step, glue the bastard together. It's two things I like to do when I'm putting ARF wings together, or even kit belt ones for that matter. I dry fit everything. And just to make sure you don't have any little gremlins, because when you get everything full of glue and your glue's drying, that's not when you want to find out, uh-oh, this ain't fitting flush. This one's not too bad. Doesn't seem to want to butt together, so that means the spar is probably a little too wide. So I'll just shave a 1/16 of an inch off maybe a 32nd of an inch or so off each end. If you're gonna do something like that, first thing I'll do is just take a little, round these off a bit. Sometimes the corners are hung up on a glue joint in there. Avalanche of sandpaper. Just round them up a bit. Not too much. There's a lot of times where the joints put together inside a little pile up of glue, and you'll notice these arcs are all put together with white glue. And they won't quite butt together inside, so let's see if that worked. You're also going to find she doesn't want to go flush, she wants to go a little lopsided, so this wing wants to be down a bit. Crack. I got some real brittle shit in this airplane, I'll tell you. So again, dry fitting. This is a good idea. It ain't great yet, so I'm just gonna make sure she's, oh yeah, she's pretty flat. That's something else I always do. I'll take a nice long sander, and without letting the end of the sander pass your rib, all the I don't want any of this covering inside. I want a nice flat glue joint. And I kind of tend to leave the pressure on the center, because if you kind of just go too far, you'll find you'll sand too much front and aft of the rib. So I'm going to do a little fitting. Probably shorten this up a smidgen. It seems like I might have to put a little step in here to get these wing halves to line up right. This is typical ARF stuff, so I'll continue on with that. Did some fitting. I get the root rib nice and flat, dusty. You can see 99% of the covering that was overlapping is gone. I'm not going to sand it down to get all of it. There's a little bit covering here. You can see that finger there that I ground off with the belt sander in the last video. It's overlapped a little bit in the sheeting, which isn't quite flush. I'm not going to sand away at that. I mean, I'm using epoxy to glue this together, and that'll take care of that. And but it's nice and flat. The ribs butt up against each other nice. So I'm going to have a good glue joint here. Real nice joint here, which is going to add strength as well as this spar. And good old, you can see where I had to sand this side to get the two halves flush. So I took a little off the top here and a little off the bottom on the opposite side, and I marked my center line. So once you start making a few alterations there to make this fit right, this will slide in a little farther on one side or the other, maybe. But anyway, you put a center line on it, left front marked, that way my adjustment's going to be on the proper side. But, laser cutting is pretty damn good, I'll tell you. But anyway, I think it's epoxy mixing time. Okay, I'm going to mix up a little bit of epoxy. The way I always do it, they tell you to do it all at once. I don't like doing it that way. I got this thing marked, like I showed you before. I'm going to epoxy this in. I know where it needs to be. Another reason to draw that line. I'll epoxy them in. I'll pull them up tight to the top, and then before I glue the other half on, when this hardens, the epoxy on this hardens, I'll fit the other wing half again just to make sure everything's fine, and then I'll put the epoxy on the root rib and the other half of the spar. But I always found gluing one spar in first just makes life easier. It's in place, it's going to stay where it's at when you slide the other half on. Yeah, it takes a little longer, but... And another thing, some guys don't use, like, I don't believe in using 5-minute epoxy just because it just doesn't have time to soak into the wood, for one thing. Ideally 30-minute if you're in a bit of a hurry. I've used 12 without a problem. I've never had a wing failure on an ARF, not at the joint anyway. But the fastest, I'm going to use the 12, but they say 30, probably the best way to go. But I'm going to go with 12. This is a lid off a Pringles chip tube. Probably the greatest thing I've ever found from mixing epoxy. And take a popsicle stick and I just put a shape to it. I can stir with this end, spread with that. Makes a great little tool. Just give them a little belt sanding there. Yeah, and keep your fingernails out of the belt sander. So I'm going to stir up some of this stinky goo and shove this guy in. Yeah, these little caps are great. I rotate the epoxy as I mix it. Gives it several different directions to stir in. Mix it up good. Some folks believe just a quick stir and away you go. No, you want a good thorough mixture before you start whacking it on the piece. So I make sure I get the right side, which is the left side, and take a big gob of the slop. I'm going to feed the slot first, so because when the spar goes in there, it's going to shove it in pretty good. And I keep some methyl hydrate kicking around, or isopropyl works really good for cleaning this up. Just stand the wing on its wing tip up against my. So this is the left front. Slime them on there. Of course, these got the lightning holes. I let the epoxy stay in the hole as much as I can. A little bit thin, but I let it get thicker as I go towards the end of the spar. Because as you shove this in the wing, it's going to push the glue towards the center. So I'm just going to gob it on in here. A lot of it will go inside these lightning holes, which is good. It's another good reason to use slower drying epoxy. Say you didn't mix enough. I do here. I've done this long enough to pretty good guesser. You have time to stir up some more. So leave them a little thin here. It's a nice tight fit on this, and I get him thicker as he goes towards the end. Again, I'll be pushing it back a bit as you shove this into the wing. That stuff is run down inside that I put on earlier. And she's doing it already. But with these lightning holes, I'll just stuff it back in there. Kind of wiggle him a bit as he goes in. Pull him out. You see, I got working. If this was 5 minutes, I'd be in a bit of a panic right now. Stuff it in, stuff it in. There you go. Get this back into the camera would help. You always think you don't have enough until you shove it into the... Getting her in there good. I'm going to pull this up towards the top of it, because that's where it wants to be, the center that way. Alright, ideally you don't want to get this shit on your hands. I didn't find out till I started building my wooden ultralight. That says right on the thing there, it's not if you develop an allergy to epoxy, it's when you develop an allergy to epoxy. Which these guys fail to tell you. So I probably should have wore the plastic or the gloves, but too late now. But anyway, I'll wipe this up with dry paper towel, then I'll soak another piece with some alcohol, wipe the rest up, because I really don't want a glue wedge here when I put those two halves together. Alright, double check. That's what I should have done before I mixed the glue. Make sure everything's okay here. And it is very good. Very, very, very good. So no more adjustments on the spar. So, do the other side. Nice big job. And just let them fall in there initially. Yep. As we've seen before, when you start pushing the spar in there, she's pretty good. What I'm going to do is on the side that doesn't have the spar in, I'll give her a coat of epoxy here. And they sure put the lightning holes to this plane, I'll tell you. Well, it's electric. The lighter does fly better. And you don't have the vibration you get with the gas engines, glow engines. So you can get away with that stuff. Soaked up in the booze. Get my hands clean. And the cleaner you keep your fingers, the less epoxy you smear all over your plastic saran wrap covered airplane. Alright. And we're running into the naturally same thing. The upside to having the lightning holes is you can just keep stuffing the glue inside those inside the spar. Keep it inside where you want it. Scrape off the excess. Yeah, so this is going to come squirting out here anyway. Make sure my fingers are clean. Splat. Now, instead of farting around, use small rubber bands on the dowel pins. And this is even mentioned in the plans, which is something I always did anyway. But these plans actually mention it. And we'll start there. You get the honking gap there. Put the wing bolts in. And we'll use the rubber band again. Not too tight, especially on the wing bolts, because you don't want to damage. Three wraps is plenty. There you have it. Now you can see all the extra epoxy oozing out of there. That's what you want. That's all coming out of there real nice. So we'll just let that ooze. Another reason why you don't want fast dry. Get that oozing out, squeezing out of there. She ain't gonna. These wingtips aren't gonna clap hands. And then especially if you're controlling it, you're pulling some pretty nasty G's when you're doing those sudden maneuvers. And you want lots of epoxy in there. Yep. Looks good. This is where doing a little sanding and fitting on the spar pays off. I'm going to put a little clamp on the back here once I clean up the extra epoxy that's squeezing out, and the rest of it will keep itself lined up because it was a good fit. And the other thing that helped is you only got one side of the spar that's going to float. The other side's already glued solid in place. How I managed to get glue in my thumb, I don't know. But that's the other thing you're going to have to do, go over it before the glue dries. Clean up all those little, where'd that come from. So I think she's pretty much done oozing. I'm going to wipe it off. Get a little rub down with the booze rag there. And make sure everything's lined up and let her dry. Okay, clean my hand with the cloth I had, and in the end I always take out another one. Give it a dose of some alcohol. And I'll shine this in the light and I'll just wipe the whole wing down. And just before I wipe, I look. I see some fingerprints. Doesn't look like they're and I stay away from the joint at this point. This, you know, not all that worried about anyway because it's underneath the fuselage. But mainly, besides, if you go past that joint, you'll get more epoxy on your paper towel, and you'll just spread it around. So I stay away from the joint. It's tacking up enough where I can handle it without worrying about moving it. Plus the rubber bands are holding it pretty tight. So any fingerprints, some of them are there from just my fingers, but they didn't, just in case, why not wipe them off with the alcohol. Especially in the bottom here, I see here there's a bunch I missed. So it pays to do this before, like even if the epoxy's tacky, it'll still come off with the alcohol on a paper towel. And don't hold on the opposite wing while your glue hasn't set up. hold on the wing you're actually cleaning, because you don't want to be putting unnecessary pressure on that joint. And pushing on it would be enough to spread that open if it's not, while you're cleaning it, when it's not dry. That would not make your day. And when you rest the wing back down, boy, that went together nice. Don't lay it down this way or upside down. You want to put it on the edge. Again, reason being, you won't have a lot of pressure on the joint. This way is not a big deal. You got a huge length here, plus the rubber bands top and bottom. It probably wouldn't do anything sitting down flat, but why ask for it? So just leave it on edge like that, and I know it ain't going over. There, quite a little pile of paper towels you end up with. But once the epoxy's all hard, you can use these again. Now, the nice thing about these, you can always keep there's always a little bit left. You can, when it hardens up, just bend it. Epoxy pops off, you peel it off, and you use these again. There, recycling tip of the day. So, it's time to mess with something else.